we're approaching maybe the most important games in the history of Major League Soccer. Yeah, I mean, all those playoff games are cool, and the US Open Cup is fun, and of course, MLS Cup will always be a big day, but to me, they are nothing compared to the competition that will be decided in due time. During the next 2 weeks, the 2022 edition of the Concacaf Champions League will be concluded. And if we're lucky, we may see the first ever MLS team hoist this trophy. I'm talking 13 years since the CCL was established. We have not ever seen an MLS team win. And not only that either. In those 13 years, we've only seen 4 finals that have had representation other than Mexican clubs. 2011, Real Salt Lake were the first MLS side to make the semifinal, and then the final, eventually falling to Monterrey. In 2015, the Montreal Impact pulled off the impossible, reaching the final and fell to Club America. 2018, an incredible Toronto FC team not only reached the final, but made it to penalties and lost it to Chivas Guadalajara. And most recently, 2020, LAFC reached the one-legged final and couldn't pull one over Tigres. And that's how it's been. A good year is one where MLS can get to a semifinal, and historically, a great year is just seeing MLS in the final, which doesn't come around often. But it has been something we are getting a little more used to seeing. The reality is, MLS has been upping their game, and more we're reaching the level of these Mexican powerhouses. Now trust me, I know that MLS is still a few steps off of that, but they're working on it, and they get a chance to get that first CCL win over the next 2 weeks. Unless you're living under a rock, you know who's in the final here. It's the Seattle Sounders and PUMAS. To get yourself ready for this game, let's discuss each of these teams, how they got here, and what you can expect for the Concacaf Champions League final. To begin, we're going to take a look at the history of these two clubs in CCL play. And let's start with PUMAS. For those unfamiliar, PUMAS is a historic club from Mexico City. Their most competitive time was back in the 80s, where they won Liga MX, 2 of the former editions of the CCL, and the Copa Interamericana within a 2-year span. Since then, they've popped in and out of winning titles, and although this is PUMAS' 5th time playing in the newest rendition of the CCL, this is their first appearance since the 2016 season. They also haven't ever made it to the final of the CCL, with their furthest run being the semifinals in both 2009 and 2011. For the Seattle Sounders, it's a little surprising, but they actually have more experience in this competition than their counterpart. This is the Sounders' 7th time appearing in the Champions League, the most of any American side, and tied with Toronto FC for appearances by an MLS team. Seattle's head coach Brian Schmetzer also carries a lot of experience into this competition, being at the helm for the Sounders' 2018, 2020, and 2022 run. Their best finish in this competition, like PUMAS, was in a semi-final in 2018. And now both of these teams will experience their first CCL final and a chance to finally win this competition. If you look at the pathway of this year's bracket, both of these teams have had some tough games. And not to brag at all, but in my preview video a couple months ago, I did call Seattle in the final. And even though I had Cruz Azul over PUMAS in the other semifinal, I still give myself credit. As for the two teams, PUMAS began their journey against Costa Rican powerhouse Saprissa in the round of 16. But the true test of this team came against the Revolution in the next round. After a snowy first leg in Massachusetts, PUMAS traveled back to Mexico with a 3-goal deficit, and honestly it could have been more if it wasn't for the Revolution's lack of finishing. Coming back to Mexico City though, PUMAS put it on the line as they battered a Revolution side that was content on sitting back and trying to absorb pressure. Yeah, I'm not over that one yet. 1 goal, then 2, then 3, and penalties to complete the comeback. PUMAS did the unthinkable and were one matchup away from reaching the final. In the next round, they came up against their city rivals in Cruz Azul, and in a tight contest, it resulted in PUMAS climbing the final hurdle to play for the trophy. On the other side of the bracket sat 3 MLS clubs, and the best opportunity for one of these clubs to have their chance to write history. In the first round, the Seattle Sounders dealt with Motagua, and after a scoreless first leg in Honduras, they were able to handle the business at home in a big 5-0 victory. Following that came the toughest test for any MLS side, playing against Liga MX opposition. In this case, it was Club León. In the first leg in Seattle, just like the Revolution against Pumas, Seattle dominated in a 3-0 win. But the trip to Mexico was the scary part. Watching the Revolution getting knocked out the day prior to this game, after also holding a 3-0 lead, it sent Brian Schmetzer a massive message. It's not over till it's over. Luckily for Seattle, they came to play, and instead of sitting back, they brought it to León. Although they did not win this game, they managed a draw and some vital experience of trying to hold a lead in Mexico. In the semifinal, the Sounders had NYCFC, the current MLS champion, and the other favorites for MLS's chance in this competition. This American affair ended with a 4-2 aggregate score and an impressive performance by goalkeeper Stefan Frei. Now, along with this competition, both of these teams have domestic leagues to take care of, and this is the case where Pumas find themselves in a tough situation. It's coming up to a very important time in the Liga MX season. Pumas have one more game to go to qualify for the playoffs. In Liga MX, the top 12 places qualify for the playoffs, and Pumas are sitting in 12th place, 1 point above that line. Therefore, they need to go all out in their league games. Along with that, these massive CCL games fall in between 2 very important games for Pumas. On April 23rd, Pumas played a huge game, falling 3-1 to Chivas Guadalajara. 4 days later, on April 27th, is the first leg of the CCL final in Mexico. After that game, 4 days later, they will play top of the table Pachuca in the final regular season game, a game that they need 3 points of in order to squeeze above that playoff line. Then, 3 days after that, is the second leg of the CCL final in Seattle. That's 4 huge games in only 12 days, which could leave Pumas a little lifeless against the Sounders. For Seattle's domestic league, well, MLS has been helping them out with fixture congestion. For their semifinal game against NYCFC, MLS rescheduled both Seattle's and New York's games in order to let them prioritize the Champions League, and it's been the same for the final. Seattle did play this past weekend, but now they have total focus on the CCL for the next full week. Again, the first leg is on Wednesday, then their MLS game over the weekend has been rescheduled, so they have the whole week off to prepare for the second leg on the following Wednesday. I think this is crucial for MLS's chance to win this competition. Now, Seattle have been struggling in MLS play, but they've been lights out in the Champions League, and I actually believe the reason for their slow start in MLS is because they've put such an emphasis on CCL for the beginning of the year. Due to that, I don't think their MLS form will correlate at all to their CCL play. But even though Seattle has all that time to rest and prepare, it's still going to be a battle down in Mexico City. MLS always struggles in Mexico to begin with. For one, Mexico City sits at an insanely high altitude, elapsing 7,300 feet above sea level. In comparison, Seattle only sits about 170 feet above sea level. For those non-science wizards out there, the higher above sea level you are, the more your lungs have to work to intake oxygen. In simple terms, higher up, harder it is to breathe. And when you're playing a professional sport like football, that will definitely take its toll, especially against the away team who isn't used to playing in those types of conditions. Along with that, games in Mexico always have a hostile atmosphere for away teams. There's no doubt that these supporters, no pun intended, breathe football, and they're gonna let you know that. In the first 15 minutes of tickets going on sale for this first leg at the Estadio Olímpico Universitario, the event was sold out. Seattle can expect 60,000 fans, again, no pun intended, breathing down their necks. For the second leg, the Seattle Sounders have done everything they can to guarantee a great crowd to witness history. After selling out the lower bowl of Lumen Field in about 1 hour, the team opened up seats in the third deck. Currently, it's reported that the Sounders have sold 45,000 tickets, which would rank this two-legged affair the most attended CCL final in its history.
It's a big fucking stadium. We need to fill all these seats. Over there. Up there. We need motherfuckers up in there. You see that?
And with all of that out of the way, finally, let's break down this matchup as it is. For PUMAS, there's some bad news. In their 6 games across this campaign, they've scored 11 goals, but 7 of those 11 have come from just one player, and that guy is Juan Ignacio Dineno. So yeah, having the majority of your goals coming from one source isn't the best, but the issue is that Dineno could quite possibly be ruled out for at least the first leg against the Sounders. After struggling with a muscle injury for some time, Dineno was ruled out of Pumas' last game against Chivas, and it's been reported that he may not be fit enough in time for Wednesday. Yes, that is a massive miss for them. But when you look at the Liga MX season, Pumas has found 2 wins and only 1 loss in games where Dineno has been missing. So they still have other scoring options, just maybe not ones that will be able to produce as prolifically as Dineno was doing in the Champions League. On the Sounders' scoring front, they've been able to dish out that responsibility a bit better. While they've missed the deadly striking abilities of Raul Ruidiaz for a good portion of the season so far, Seattle still has scored the most goals in this year's CCL with 13. Freddie Montero and Jordan Morris both sit on 3 goals, and their number 10, Nicolas Ladero, also has 2 to his name. With Ruidiaz getting back into the starting 11 as well, I think this Seattle team will be a huge threat on the attack. Another huge miss for the first leg for Pumas is the suspension of their center back Arturo Ortiz. Although Pumas haven't really been locking it down in the back so far in this campaign, conceding 7 goals over their 6 games up to this point, Ortiz has played an integral role in his side's run to the final, which included a goal in their round of 16 game versus Saprissa. Now, although the Sounders haven't had as tough of a path to the final as Pumas did, I think it's worth mentioning that they've only conceded 3 goals in their 6 CCL games. A big part of that is goalkeeper Stefan Frei, who just in their second leg against New York in the semifinal recorded 7 saves. For Pumas, I'm not that impressed with their number 1, and looking back at some of the goals conceded by this Pumas side over the course of the tournament, I think there are multiple instances where he should have or could have done better. But even though I do think the Seattle team is favorites heading into these 2 games, I just gotta think about that first leg in Mexico. Luckily, the Sounders are at home in the second leg, which means they will be able to have that extra push to recover any type of deficit that they may pick up in Mexico City. Even with that though, it's extremely important Seattle goes to Mexico on Wednesday ready to play. MLS and Mexico doesn't mix well together. Like we talked about with the Revolution earlier, we don't want to see anything like that again. Since 2018, MLS in Mexico sits at a record of 3 wins, 15 losses, and 3 draws. Along with that, MLS has been outscored 41-14 in those matches. That's why even though MLS is making strides to level the playing field with Liga MX, there's still a long way to go. And now with all of that being said, let's give out my prediction for the Concacaf Champions League final. In the first leg at the Estadio Olímpico Universitario, I think we'll see a draw with 1 goal going to each side. In the return leg at Lumen Field, this is the one to decide it all. I do think the Seattle Sounders will win with a score of 3-2. Now, obviously, newsflash, this is a biased prediction. I'm an MLS guy. Of course, I want to speak this result into reality. But also, I do really think that this is MLS's best ever shot at winning the damn thing. I think this is a Puma side that we can take advantage of, and even though Seattle is in bad form in the league, I think they'll rise to the occasion. Now, before I go, I want to make one thing very clear. Even if Seattle wins this tournament, we will need to see consistent competitiveness coming from MLS sides until we can comfortably say we are on the same level as Mexico and Liga MX. A one-time thing doesn't cut it. Every year MLS should be in these finals, and every year we need to be pushing the envelope on what we can accomplish. Until then, the fact is, Liga MX is the king of Concacaf, but I'm sure one day that'll change. Thank you for watching this video, enjoy the final, and I hope to see you next time.